Just move this away. All right, well, let's kick this off. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, gentlemen. Thank you all for joining this actual second webinar that we have on Windows Virtual Desktop and how we can enable business continuity. My name is Jesper. I'm the program manager here at Firesoft, and I'm also the organizer of this webinar. I also take it that most of you people are working from home right now. This initial workshop here was also supposed to be an in-person workshop, but due to these interesting circumstances, we had to adjust and make this into a webinar, which is partly why we're also here to make sure that everybody can keep up the regular businesses or business activities and sort of adjust to the modern day challenges. And during this particular webinar, you'll hear from our very own Prasad Palluri, who's a WD expert at People Tech Group, and also hear from the president at Firesoft, Bob Duffy. But before we go any further, I have a bit of housekeeping rules. So any questions that you might have, by all means, write it in the chat. I will take notes of it, and I'll make sure that once we reach the end of this particular webinar, then we have a Q&A session, and then we will try and get to as many questions as we can within the specific time limit. Now, also, post this webinar, we will have handouts sent out, just one pager that basically summarizes what we've been talking about. And post this meeting, we will also upload this particular recording on Firesoft website if you want to revisit it. So, just a couple of or a few words about Firesoft before we kick off the presentation. So, at Firesoft, we are experts on digital transformation, and we have a long history with Microsoft as a gold partner here in North America, where we've helped customers reimagine how they bring together people, data, processes, and create value for these customers, and make sure that we maintain a competitive advantage in this digital first world. Now, partnering with Microsoft will help organizations to quickly and successfully transform into a digital company where we provide industry skills and expertise in an agile, tailored to your needs approach. Firesoft's main or core competencies revolve around three pillars of digital transformation, which is the modern workplace, intelligent cloud solutions, and modern applications and data. And as you can see, we've got 2 years running of Cloud Partner. We've been working with multiple Fortune 500 clients, and we have quite a lot of collective enterprise workplace experience here as well. So with that said, just a brief introduction to the presenters. As I mentioned before, we have Prasad Palluri and Bob Duffy, but I will let these gentlemen introduce themselves. So Prasad, take it away.
Thank you, Jesper. Hi, everyone. I'm Prasad Palluri, Director of Cloud Services at People Tech Group. I have 18 years of experience. Most of my experience has been working at Microsoft as a full-time engineer with Windows and other product teams. So in the last 4 years, myself and my team, we have been closely working with the Microsoft product team, the WVD team, and we have gone through the complete journey of getting their RDS workload onto Azure as IaaS to RDMI as PaaS, and now Microsoft has announced WVD as SaaS, and we are closely working with them to do the open source tools, which include the management, diagnostics, UX, and also we develop scripts for rapid deployments and scale, which are available on GitHub. I would like to introduce President of Firesoft, Bob.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for coming. I don't know about you all, but this work from home thing is starting to feel like the new normal out here in Redmond. We've been on work from home since Microsoft went to it back on March 4th. So we're ahead of most of the country. The good news is, here in Washington, we've really seen evidence of the flattening of the spread. We still haven't tipped it down yet. I think people are calling victory a little early here. We're still rising. It's just we flattened it to the point where we're not overwhelming our medical facilities, which is great. And it's going to pay off. But that said, we're still going to be under this for some time. We'll probably follow Microsoft's lead, as we have a lot of resources that work, with Microsoft and at Microsoft in Redmond, and so we'll be following their lead. Which means we need to get everyone productive, and I'm sure you're facing those same challenges. What we're going to be talking about today is just that, using new Microsoft technology, WVD on Azure, to get everyone up and running. A little bit about my background. I've spent over 30 years of technology consulting. I've been consulting, directly with Microsoft here in Redmond since Windows 95 launch back in the fall of 95. And I'm going to be telling you about some of the stories of the folks that we've helped get up onto WVD in response to the COVID epidemic, specifically getting their employees up and running and access to the applications they need to get their jobs done in a work from home scenario. So we'll get it going. Prasad. Prasad, you there?
Hi, sorry, I was on mute. So the agenda for today is we'll start with what are the business drivers for WVD, and Bob will present some of the classic use cases and how the new challenging times are forcing WVD into remote working. And I'll go through some of the WVD technical benefits, like why WVD is better compared to other technology, and also talk about a rapid deployment process, how quickly we can get you onboarded onto WVD. And we have built a solution Task Manager that kind of enhances and accelerates and simplifies your WVD adoption and management and monitoring. And also at the end, I'll go through some of the Microsoft funds that are available that you can take advantage of to kickstart pilot or your customers if you have at least 25 users. And we end with a Q&A. Yes, let's get started with the list of business drivers. So a lot of customers move on to WVD, and there are multiple reasons for moving on to WVD. Here are some of the strategic business justification for customers to move on WVD. One of the key one is the cost reduction. With WVD introduced, I'll go through in detail how it reduces the cost. But in general, it reduces your infrastructure cost, your software cost, and services cost, which brings your total TCO of managing and running a desktop for your company. The next driving factor is people are driving towards the cloud. Like a lot of organizations are adopting cloud or early into adopting cloud and moving out of data center. And some of the customers, MSPs we deal with, have hardware refresh. They have to do a huge CapEx. They are considering WVD as a solution from moving away from huge capital expenses to a minimalistic operating expenses and pay what they use. The other driving factor is we are at a junction of Windows 7 end of services, and where a lot of customer base still on Windows 7, and Microsoft is not going to support, which is going to create vulnerabilities in terms of patches and updates. And also, a lot of customers are running VDI infrastructure on 2008 server. So those are WVD enables to bring in your Windows 7 image onto the cloud through WVD. That is a possibility. And there are organizations which are looking for endpoint flexibility. They want to allow a lot of startups and organizations, they want to allow their developers and end customers to bring in their own devices, which they are comfortable with. It can be Linux or Mac or any OS. Primarily, WVD enables customers to allow businesses to bring in their own devices without compromising on security and also not increasing the manageability of their endpoint devices. The other primary requirement for WVD is security and compliance. A lot of industries like finance, SLG, oil and petroleum, healthcare, and many other industries, they have data compliance where they cannot leave data on customer device. So this is a very classic use case for customers having the desktop running on cloud and none of the data leaves the cloud because WVD streams all the desktop and apps right from the cloud. And on one other use case, we are working with some of the fastest growing companies where they have to bring in a lot of on-demand users and a lot of growth in their workforce. It's very hard to keep up with those workforce, especially the on-demand workforce. WVD accelerates and enables those scenarios to quickly enable those workers within minutes instead of taking hours or days to onboard to the on-demand workforce. And one of the interesting scenario we have seen in the past, and we are seeing more and more now, is work from home scenario, where a lot of companies are adopting with COVID work from home. And most of the use case we have been doing in the recent days are enabling a lot of states, counties, government, EDUs, and healthcare professionals to enable them to work from home through the WVD technology. So Bob is going to go through some of the use cases and our current implementation and our learnings part of it.
Sure. Thanks, Prasad. So virtualization has traditionally supported a number of classic use cases. Companies use virtualization to address things like specific business needs that they have in their organization and provide access to the data and secure access to the organizational resources that they need. Some of the classic use cases then are shown here. Things like ensuring compliance with industry standards, right? In regulated industries, financial services, healthcare, and government, allowing you to quickly spin up an elastic workforce when you need it for short-term needs, things like mergers and acquisitions, short-term employees and contractors. It also allows you to support specific employee needs. Bring your own device, something that's very much at play right now, is made available via WVD. It also supports your classic cases like call centers where you want a real standard desktop available to everybody, and there's a lot of shifting and shift changes, et cetera, and sharing of machines otherwise. This allows you to spin up a unique machine for everybody in that call center and not have to invest in extra hardware. It also allows you to maintain that really tight control of security over your applications and your data in those scenarios, particularly when you have workforces that are coming and going, right? So, and finally, there's a very classic use case is putting a specialized workload like engineering design apps, any legacy applications you might have, or the temporary needs of project-based resources that come on and just need a particular application for a particular set of time. So those are kind of the classic cases. These help you employees stay productive and on a virtualized experience on their PC, phone, or tablet, just as if they have that physical PC sitting right in front of them, right? And that PC can have a varying level of power, whatever power is really needed to get that job done. You can also simplify the management and provisioning of all those machines, right? Versus the physical world of physical machines. And ultimately, as Prasad said, it can reduce costs, and the resources associated with managing is one of the big cost benefits here with the WVD infrastructure. So these are the classic scenarios. However, the novel coronavirus has brought us a number of new cases to the forefront, and these are the things that we're addressing right now with our customers. So with COVID-19, the world has kind of crashed down on us, right? And made work from home the new normal that we've got to support. WVD can really be used to help in these functions, right? It can be used to support your traditional office-based workers in government, sales and marketing, telehealth, traditional corporate functions. This enables your workforce to do their job from home. Remain as productive as they would if they were at work. Giving them access to all the tools and the data that they need securely. This is what this kinds of scenarios that we're now dealing with, and in a very rapid way. We're going to talk through some of those specific examples here in a minute. If you look at these scenarios, it's about getting the applications that they need, to them, and getting also the computing power that they need, right? And they can access these things from whatever devices they already have at home, right? And as you can see in that last photo, people are getting things done, but there are some things that work from home and WVD can't do to keep your productivity up. But I think we can at least get everyone the computing power they need, onto all the devices that they have, and make that as productive as possible. So in the last few weeks, we've been spinning up a number of these new scenarios for our customers, and I'm going to talk about a few of those and right now. The first of which was the city of Atlanta. We got first started with the city of Atlanta really almost 2 years ago, when they were hit by a different kind of virus, the ransomware kind. They were hit hard. All of their departments were locked up with this ransomware attack. We were the first boots on the ground, right alongside Microsoft, helping them spin up new systems and getting their apps up and running and getting their city services back online. Now, here we are 2 years later, this time fighting a human virus that's threatened to shut down city services again. So we, with just hours of notice, Firesoft and Ubikite had a team of 10 deep rolling WVD out to the city of Atlanta workers so that they could get their departments back up and online during the COVID-19 pandemic. This work helped get them secure access to their applications and the data that they needed, and allowed them to start doing a lot of the city functions from home, as opposed to just shutting them down, right? This story was so dramatic, it was highlighted in a Wall Street Journal article a couple of weeks ago that featured the CIO of Atlanta, Gary Brantley. Another customer that was hit hard by the virus is Cabot Microelectronics. They have facilities in Italy, so they kind of got hit early, right, before we were really getting very affected here. And when they shut down Italy, they needed to quickly get their workers that were on complete lockdown, work from home, virtual systems to their apps, right, and access to their apps. So they quickly rolled out WVD. We were actually not working with them on that project. We were there helping them with an SAP application migration to Azure. And we heard about this work going on with WVD. And they had quickly rolled it out and had gotten their teams up and running, but they had really failed to optimize their environment. For instance, they had machines running all weekend long that weren't needed, right? So they were spending cycles that didn't need to be happening. So we're working with them now using DAS Manager and implementing auto scaling so that we can predictively spin up and spin down machines as needed. Implementing FS Logic profile management, so their preferences and profiles are stored and then restored when they come back in later. So we're using this as this time to get their environment tuned and up and running, and then put them in a position to monitor and manage it with the right tools that keep the productivity up. Yet another example of the use of WVD is Columbia University's Teachers College. Teachers College is the oldest and largest graduate school of education in the United States. Of course, all of their students had to disperse around the world when New York shut down, right? They had to move everything to virtual classrooms. But some of their students required access to specialized third-party applications like MATLAB, M+, and Stata. and they're dispersed all over the world, right? To get these classes in, they need access to these specific applications. And since they don't have access to their labs now, they needed to get to them virtually. So right now we're helping them deploy a pilot that's going to set up in their Azure environment and load these specific lab apps, some of which are very graphic intensive, right? And they're going to be accessing them from having students, access those machines from around the world and get access to those labs and complete those courses, right? It's going to provide their students a virtual lab in the cloud. And most likely, this is an environment that will live beyond COVID, right? As we get them up and productively running in this lab environment, this is probably going to become the way that they provide access to these applications going forward. Then next up, we've got our work at DeKalb County of Georgia. Prasad, you were involved deeply in that implementation. Can you tell us what all happened in that case?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. With DeKalb County, we did enable the judicial department to bring in the Tyler Tech Odyssey program so that the judicial department can work remotely from home. So this is one of we did this very quickly within a couple of days to bring in multiple agencies, and one of the key agency was bringing up their judicial department and making sure that they're able to access all their judicial apps. Working from home was one of the key scenario we did with DeKalb County there. We are going to continue. We are continuing to expand on with state of Georgia, and we are trying to enable like 14 more agencies to work from home as we kind of speak right now. Yeah, these are. So I would like to move to the next slide. I would like to cover some of the very high-level benefits of WVD. And you all know that in the past, virtualization has always been, always the apps and desktops have been always virtualized on server infrastructure and server OS. So those were not optimized for end user experience. If you have experienced with RDS or any other like technologies like Citrix or Workspace, they were not meant for Windows 10 or client OS. They were all optimized on server OS. And most of us have always worked on laptops and desktops on Windows 10 and Office 365 running on our laptops and desktops at home and work. So what Microsoft did, and we've been working closely with them, is Microsoft is trying to build a similar experience of bringing a special SKU of Windows 10 on Azure. They call it Windows 10 single session and Windows 10 multi-session. Those two SKUs are available on Azure, depending on whether you want to run a user on a shared machine or a dedicated machine. So what it does is it brings the best of Windows 10 on Azure. It brings in together both Windows 10 and Office, and it brings the best experience of Office on Azure cloud. And it also enables the end users to access WVD from any platform. So you don't need to worry about your endpoint anymore. They can access their desktops from iOS, Android, or from Linux, or any platform from any devices like tablets or thin clients. So you don't need to worry about security or thin client. So I would like to go through some of the specific details of what Office has optimized. So last few years, WVD team and Office team worked together to bring the Office 365 very optimized and seamlessly integrated with Windows 10 on Azure Cloud. Some of them are Teams is optimized. Teams have put in a lot of effort to increase the bandwidth optimization for high performance and low latencies, and they have done increasing the frame rates. Those are some of the features they have done. And Microsoft acquisitioned FX Logic that allows of caching. They brought in a concept of profile containers into the profiles. So what it does is it kind of makes Outlook start much faster. So all your Outlook cache is being put in the container, and when you log in, everything is available cached. And Microsoft has also, you can also put your desktop indexing also into your cache. And right now, Team OneDrive is much faster because OneDrive, all the files sit on Azure, and your WVD Windows 10 is also on Azure. So it makes your file synchronization between your OneDrive, 1 terabyte of OneDrive. You have Office for, if you have OneDrive for Business, and then you can get all the files into your desktop within a fraction of a second. So this is on the WD end user experience. I would like to go into the security aspect here a little bit. Uh, in the traditional case, in previous cases with virtualization of desktop, you have to open up a lot of ports on your server machines so that you can virtualize your apps. So Microsoft has changed that, and Microsoft made the entire WD very secure. So there is no inbound ports. Everything is through reverse connect on 443 on a secure port. And WVD is tightly integrated with Azure Active Directory. So all the users that you add into WVD, and they are doing more and more integration into WVD in terms of Azure files and bringing other Azure features there. What it does is it allows you to enable multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and bring in all security graph. Uh, it brings in all the rich features of Azure Active Directory. And the other important feature that Microsoft did is Microsoft enabled role-based access. So now they've enabled multiple roles, like you can be owner, operator, contributor at different levels. So that will allow you to manage, give access to your IT admins and give controls on different departments and different hosts. So that will allow them to have different role-based access on WVD. Would like to move on to the next slide. Uh, one of the key benefit, as we keep mentioning, is the cost benefit. So WVD has been optimized for cost. So what it does is it brings the Windows 10 experience at a multi-session cost. What it means is you can have a huge server of Windows 10 multi-session running on your cloud, and you can have users log in, you can add as many users logged in and provide that personalized Windows 10 experience so that the cost get distributed across one or multiple servers. That brings the overall cost of your servers drastically down. And one of the advantage of running WVD on cloud is you are not provisioning for the peak usage. You're only provisioning for the demand. We have scale script that automatically turns on the VM and turns off the VM based on your usage patterns. So you only provision and pay for what you use on Azure. That brings the cost drastically down if you're running from 9 to 5 on weekdays. And one of the major advancement with WVD is you don't need to set up a VDI infrastructure, or you don't need to worry about monitoring, managing a VDI infrastructure. All the gateway broker licensing server has been made as Microsoft first party service, and it's available for free. So all this VDI infrastructure and licensing, uh, previously the customers used to pay RDS CAL licenses. Those all these are gone. If you are already, like most of Microsoft customers have a version of M365 or Windows 10 VDI license. If you have those licenses, already you have license into the VDI infrastructure, you can use the entire Microsoft VDI infrastructure for free. And the other benefit of Azure is Azure allow the Windows 10 SKU is built at a Linux cost. So you're not paying for a huge licensing fee for the Windows 10 multi-session servers. And on top of that, Microsoft also allows customers to get reserved instance that brings the cost of infrastructure to by 70%. And it also reduces the labor cost of managing the VDI infrastructure because everything is managed by Microsoft. So if you see on the right side diagram, the blue part is what Microsoft owns and Microsoft kind of manages. Previously, enterprises and SMBs used to manage the VDI infrastructure. You don't need to worry about it. So all you do is in the bottom right corner, you bring your own subscription. You bring a subscription, and it's everything is automatically taken care. Automatically, all you do is provision the session host server where users are connecting to, and these session host servers get added gets attached into the WVD services through a script, and automatically Microsoft allows you to connect to those WVD through the connection broker and gateway. and you only pay for what you use in your infrastructure. If you want to do business continuity, if you want to do monitoring and backup, those things can be done in the client Azure subscription here. Yeah. So let's move on to the next slide. So how we do how we did for a lot of customers, how did we enable? I would like to go through like how we enable WVD for a lot of customers through our rapid deployment process. So as Bob mentioned, for City of Atlanta, we got WVD set up in 2 days. So in 48 hours, they were able to get their workforce started and get their workforce running on remote desktops. And we are enabling a lot of customers within a day. So here it talks about a 1 week process of starting with assessment discovery. And what we do in the initial assessment and discovery is we identify uh, their how they want to set up their identity, how they want to set up their network, what kind of users they have, what kind of apps they want to be using, and we make recommendations based on whether they have to be on multi-session or single session, or whether it has to be remote app or it has to be a remote desktop session. Those take typically for a couple of hours to do the initial discovery. And once the discovery is done, we go into the core infrastructure setup. So this ranges from an hour of our effort to a couple of days. It depends on whether we are working with an MSP or we are working with a large enterprise with so many controls on their security and policies that they have. So it can be as simple as creating a subscription and creating the domain controller and enabling session host, or it can be as complex as extending their AD and setting up resilient patterns on their RIP patterns on their DC servers, and also enabling a lot of security on their firewall, setting up their VNet, subnet. All that can be done part of their core infrastructure, depending on the level of requirements that organizations have. So once we set up the infrastructure like network and server host and also the image, immediately we enable the product within 4 hours. We have a solution, we call it Ubiquiti Task Manager. We enable the solution within 4 hours that will allow them to go and manage and monitor and optimize their WVD environment. And we kind of support another 5 days to kind of handhold, train the customers so that they can manage the environment by themselves. Going on to the next slide. So if you see, having set a WVD for large number of customers, we see a general pattern of how customers generally go through this journey. One of the first thing they do is deployment. In the deployment, we work with Microsoft to provide open source PowerShell scripts to deploy, to scale, or and have on templates. But some of the customers do have experience with PowerShell, but a lot of them have difficulty learning this. There's a huge learning curve in WVD and PowerShell, and we want to optimize it. So in Ubiquiti Task Manager, we kind of took away some of the pain points of, hey, you don't need to do the PowerShell script. We provide a nice interface for them to quickly deploy. So instead of taking days or hours, it's going to take minutes to deploy their WVD and set up their first initial WVD environment. Once the WVD environment is set up, like they start piloting with an organization with 5 users and 5 desktops. The next thing is like, how do I scale? How do I manage this? How do I set this up for other organization? So one of the challenge that they have is management part of it. You know, as you all know, that Microsoft Azure has limited features on Azure Blades, uh, and publishing and adding a user, publishing an app, all takes like additional scripts, or they have to host their additional UX there. So what we did is, based on our learning, we built a simplified management plane that will allow users to manage, which includes publishing an app, adding a user, one-click deploy, one-click backup, and also setting up their FX Logic container without having to go through the hassle. So once the management is done, the next thing is like, once after a few weeks, one of the things customers ask for is, how do I monitor? Because they want to be proactive in managing their IT needs. So Microsoft has enabled the diagnostics and Microsoft Azure has monitoring, but there is no out-of-box solution for monitoring your WVD solution. So we did build some of the features that will allow them to proactively monitor their WVD environment, including their users and apps in real time, do diagnostics and troubleshooting. After like 3 or 4 weeks, the next problem that users get into is optimize. So how do they bring the cost down and have business continuity and also have all the compliances set up on there? So which includes we have built a scale script that's available through Microsoft on open source, but we took the scale script and integrated into a simplified UI that will allow them to easily add the scale script from a UI and enable the scale script as well. And for business continuity, we allow with through backup and other features as well. I would like to quickly explain about how the whole Ubikite works. So here, Ubikite is a solution that's hosted on Azure as a SaaS offering that connects with Microsoft WVD services and also with your subscription. If you see on the top left corner, all the users will be directly accessing WVD through Microsoft WVD services, but the IT admin will have a nice UI and dashboard for them to manage, monitor, deploy, and optimize WVD. And everything is instead of directly connecting to Azure.Microsoft portal.azure.com or going to PowerShell script, the IT admins can efficiently and super quickly can manage their WVD and scale their entire organization with much simplicity there. So I would like to quickly jump on and demonstrate the WVD quickly here. I'm going to take myself as a presenter. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Please let me know, guys, when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we see it here.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. So this is how our portal looks. Once you log in, we have manage and monitor both the features baked in. We have global search. If you are looking for certain users or certain host pool, you can directly jump from global search. So that will allow the IT admins to not worry about, hey, which organization, which desktop, which app group. They can jump right from the global search here. And if they have multi-tenant, if like MSPs, they can actually switch from one organization to another organization. And here it provides a tree view of all the session host servers that are enabled. They can have a quick peek at their environment. So now coming onto the dashboard, here it gives you a quick snapshot of, hey, these are like host pools are considered to be organizations. You have 6 organizations set up. You have 2 active session hosts running out of 22. There are 2 active users out of 54 that are using WVD now, and you also can see the list of apps. Here it gives you this is all the session host servers that are running in your environment. You can actually, this is what you're paying for in your Azure. This allows you to kind of see when your session hosts are getting up and down. So you know that you're not over provisioning or underutilizing your WVD sessions during the off hours or weekends. Here it gives you a snapshot of how your sessions are growing and how it's coming down within your organization. One of the key things I'm going to explain here is we allow users to like add VM gallery here. So one of the key features is you can set up a VM gallery so that you can create your session host for a particular organization. You wanted to bring a desktop or a remote app, you can create a golden image. And once the golden image is created, you can enable as many session hosts as much you can within a single click. So let me go into the host pool. These are like the organization groups in your organization. Here is an example like accounting, engineering, human resource. Here you can see a quick snapshot of like, hey, how many users are connected? How many host machines are enabled in that particular host pool? This gives you an overall snapshot. Like IT admins are going to have this executive view so that they can see everything in one glance. So if you have to set up a new organization or a host pool, you come in, you enter your host pool name, you set up a location. Once you set up your location, you pick whether it's a shared or desktop, and it's automatically enabled. Once the host pool is enabled, the next thing you can do is adding session host. If you have already set up the image, all you have to do is come here, pick the image and say, hey, I need 100 session host servers. So within one click, it will automatically enable the session host within few minutes in the background so that all the session hosts are being provisioned and added to that particular session host pool. So once the session host is done, you can actually create the app groups. Like you can create two types of app group, either a remote desktop app group or remote app group. So let me go into one of the app group. This is the remote app group, which has the 6 apps here, and then it has 4 users here. So let me jump right here. It kind of shows you all the information here, who's the users, who's the apps. You can see right from here. Within host pool, there are some features. I'm not going to go in detail, but you can come and set, as I mentioned, you can set up auto scale policies without having to go through the complex scripts. You can come in here, you can enable an auto scale policy of like you can set up multiple policies. You can do depth first and breadth first, depending on the morning hours, evening hours, how you wanted to enable it. And also, you can also set up the provision, the backup, which is all integrated tightly into the Azure backup here. So you can go into like the list of session hosts. You can see all the list of host machines that are enabled, and you can also see the status of those host machines as well. Let me go into a quick app group. Yeah, these are the different app groups. As I said, you can go and provision new app group. Once the app group is set up, you can go publish an app. So let me quickly show you how to publish an app. So this is the end user experience. Let me go into the end user experience here. Once you publish, users can use either a remote desktop client, or they can use the web browser to access the apps. So if you come in here, you can see that there's a calculator app that's already published. You can come into our app and you can remove the app. And then once the app is removed, immediately the app is going to be removed for your users. So that kind of shows that you can manage your apps and users right from the UbiKite Task Manager there. So you can see that the app is not listed anymore. If you want to publish an app, you can come in here and type in whatever apps you want to publish. And it'll automatically get listed in your apps. And the other thing is you can provision a user. You can come in and add a user. We are also enabling groups parallelly, like in the background. We are trying to bring that feature into the UI. You have ability to add groups and also users and also the bulk users here. Once I added the calculator app now. This is the end user logging into the RD web. You can see that they will have the calculator app automatically show up in their app list. So this is how you add your apps and users. Now I would like to move on to the monitoring piece. Once you enable the management, the next thing is how do you do real-time monitoring of your WVD? So we did bring in some of the WVD diagnostics and Azure Monitor features right into the Task Manager, so you can have a quick snap at your WVD environment. Here you can see all your session hosts. You can have a preview of all your session hosts, what is happening, whether it's healthy, what is your CPU memory, all the key vitals are shown here. If you want to go into the detail, you can always click into the session host and go into the overview of that particular session host. You can see what is the size of the session host and which account pool, private IP, resource group, all this information are readily available for you here. Going back into this screen, if you have multiple host pool, let's say you have hundreds of host pool, you can go into this particular view to have a particular where you can see within each group which are the hosts that are available and how they are performing within that particular host pool. Coming on here, it gives you all the low disk, unhealthy, peak usage. You can also see the active users and session hosts. You can also see like how your sessions are growing and automatically your session host is increasing as per the user workload here. And you can also see the failed user. You can also see the failed users here. I'll move on to the user session activity. This is a feed that's coming from WVD, where you can actually see how the customers are failing, what's happening there. If somebody's is disconnected, you can see like why it happened. All this feed, you can do that. And you can also search based on a particular user, like Deborah. You can see what's going on with that user when it failed. All this proactive diagnostics can be done through this UI. Yeah, so if you are interested, I can do a detailed demo, but I would like to give it back to Jesper right now.
Thank you, Prasad. I'm just going to steal the slideshow now. Let's see.
So you can see, I think, what we've provided here with the DAS Manager is the user interface that spans the product, right, and allows your resources to quickly get up to speed and manage these environments. And that's proven to be just a huge boon, and is allowing these really rapid deployments, right? These are built for enterprises, right? This monitoring and this ability to track and see things. These all came out of requirements that the enterprise customers that Microsoft was working with in their public preview and early beta software releases. This is the feedback they were giving. These are the things that they need to, the requirements that they needed to meet, right? And we're pulling these stats that are filling these dashboards straight out of Microsoft Azure, WVD infrastructure. We're hitting their APIs to pull these stats back, and we've just created these dashboards for displaying them. So it really makes this product WVD, quickly deployable and then manageable.
Yeah, so I'd like to quickly go through some of the benefits that Microsoft has come up with. Like Microsoft introduced a new program, which is called Accelerate WVD, through which Microsoft is providing some funds for partners and for implementation partners, and also for customers to pilot and use WVD. One of the key requirements for that is you need to have at least 25 users active users set up in production by end of June. So that will allow you to qualify for this program, and you have to be part of Microsoft managed customer list, and we can work with the Microsoft contacts for that. So if you deploy your WVD either natively or you bring in any of the other solutions that are available, so Microsoft allows you to do that benefit. Other than the Microsoft benefit, we also provide this software UbiGuide for 6 months for free, which will allow you to manage and monitor and optimize your WVD environment. But beyond that, it's going to be we are going to charge you $3 per user per month, and we also charge $5 per concurrent user per month. You can choose one of those models after 6 months. So, excuse me, that will allow you to have a free trial of UbiGuide in this COVID situation and allow you to manage and monitor and optimize your WVD environment. And we also bring in our WVD experts. You can access to our resources and leverage our expertise on WVD as well.
So this gets you a really very, very low to no cost way to kick the tires on WVD, get a small team, up and running on it, users using it, and see if it's meeting your needs. And I think really what we're finding with our customers is getting the environment out there and working, just clarifies, in their mind, who are the user groups and users that can really take advantage of this. And then now they're starting to make plans. Okay, we had our, we rushed out to get this out to the folks that, had specific needs right now. Now, where can we use this beyond? This is a tool that'll be in their tool belt from, here going forward. And it's just a matter of, which apps and which users, best fit some of those use cases that we talked about earlier. But we're happy to get together with you and talk through this program that Microsoft's supporting, and see if we can get a pilot up and running with you. We can also, spend time individually with you in a one-on-one session where we're, talking about your specific user workloads and user groups and scenarios, and make sure that WVD is a good fit for those particular users and groups. We're happy to do a call. As a follow-up out of this, we'll be sending you kind of a quick start guide, one pager that tells you a summary of some of the things we talked about today. But we certainly love to do personalized one-on-one and talk about your particular scenarios.
So yeah, this more or less concludes the general presentation, and we're moving into these questions and answers. So if you guys have any questions, by all means, smack it in the chat, and we will do our best to address the questions. We did have one question from John. I believe, unfortunately, he left the conversation, but it might be something that people are interested in nonetheless. So he heard that, so Prasad, I believe this is more on to you. So he's heard that WVD doesn't have its own virtual desktop management tool. Everything has to be managed by PowerShell or third party specifically. So if that's true, is Microsoft working on building their own management tool, or what's going on there?
Yes, it's a very good question. So if you look at the current WVD environment, Microsoft have two options to, there are it's all scattered right now, how you have to manage your WVD. There is a first-hand experience through very limited features available through Microsoft WVD Azure Blades in WVD 1.0. And we have worked with Microsoft to provide an open source management tool, and that's very limited on their feature set. And there is also scripts that we enable to, like adding a host pool, scaling, all that has been provided to customers. So if you have to manage now, you have to go partly into Azure Blades, partly into PowerShell scripts, and partly you have to use the open source tool. That kind of keeps things very scattered and very limited. So the other thing is Microsoft is continuing to enhance their WVD story of WVD 2.0 and bringing some minimalistic features into the Azure Blades, so that customers do not go into all this different tool set. But even WVD 2.0 is going to be very limited in terms of features, and customers will need more than what Microsoft is going to provide in 8 months down the road. So it will not have the backup integrated. It will not have the scale integrated. It will not have the simplicity of giving access to different roles for your IT admins, for them to manage, monitor, role-based access for managing the WVD. So yes, there is a progress that's happening from Microsoft, but from our side, we have been closely working with the Microsoft team, and as we speak, and we are keeping the YubiKey Task Manager product way ahead of what Microsoft is going to be focusing on in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, so let's be clear. I mean, really, I think the statement is that that is correct. Microsoft rolled out the basic infrastructure, and that's why we built YubiKey, right? That's why we built these functions on top of it that support all of those things and bring it all together into a single pane of glass. So it's out there. It's out there. It's called YubiKey, right? And we're working very closely with Microsoft to augment what they're putting out. And making sure that that the YubiKey product fills all those gaps. So today's solution is WVD plus YubiKey to bring you a fully managed single dashboard to manage your WVD environments.
Awesome. All right. So another question that we got was what is the lead time for getting WVD up and running? Where do we stand on that particular front?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's a very common question. How much time it takes to get started on WVD? As I mentioned before, if you are going through, you already have licensing like Office M365 licenses, and you have an Azure subscription, yes, we can enable you WVD within few hours. And if you have any requirements to extend your on-prem or extend your AD to Azure Cloud, either through Azure Active Directory Domain Services, or setting up a VM on Azure, or those things will take somewhere between 1 to 3 days. So on an average, every customers we have been working with, I would say, to get something started on WVD and have their end users start accessing their desktops or apps from their home, typically takes somewhere between a day to 2 days to get their WVD started. Yeah, that's the time it takes. But in terms of setting it up for management and for monitoring, it's going to take like 3 to 4 days for them to stabilize and set up the complete environment so that they can drive the environment by themselves. They are trained to manage and trained to monitor the environment without the need of our help.
Still very, very rapid deployments, happening, and that's the beauty of this infra. No upfront cost in buying hardware and rolling it out like you used to have to do to get these environments up and running. And it's all on demand. It can be spun up and spun down as you need. Then going forward, to me, it just becomes another asset and toolkit, that you've got to address certain situations from an IT infrastructure perspective. Any other questions, Jesper?
As of right now,
we're kind of hitting right at the wall.
I was about to say
9:29,
that. Yeah, we're more or less hitting the time here. So, like, if any of you guys have a last quick question that you want to get in, then by all means, the time is right now. Otherwise, I think in order to save everybody's time, like we're gonna round this off.
Yeah, and we'll send out a follow up to everyone on the call. Just reply to that follow up if you want to get into a one-on-one conversation with any of our engineers and talk about your particular scenario and how we might attack it.
So yeah,
thanks,
I just
everybody.
want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you Prasad and Bob for taking your time to go through the session. As Bob said, like we'll be sending out the handout, general overview. We will be putting up the recordings, as I said earlier. Yeah, and then if you guys have some more questions, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And then we'll be more than happy to sit down and have a one-on-one. We can go into a little bit more details in YubiKite specifically if you had some questions regarding that, or if you're still a little uncertain as to how you can leverage this nice pre-approved offer in order to leverage WVD easily, then we can also include that in a one-on-one session. So I just wanted to thank everyone for attending. It was a pleasure, and thank you Prasad and Bob, and you all have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Jesper.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jesper.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.